Hi, my name is Daniela Corbetta. I've been the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Motor Learning and Development for the past 6 years. And I'm here today to introduce you to our new editor, Maarten Immink. He's not new to the journal, but I am really excited to introduce you to the general readership because I think it comes with very new and fresh ideas for the future of the journal. Maarten, do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Daniela. Thanks for that introduction. Welcome. Yeah, so my background is I trained in motor learning at Texas A&M under David Wright and Charlie Shea, and got my motor development training under Carl Gabbard. So three great scholars I had opportunity to work with. When I finished at Texas A&M, I moved to Australia in 1999 and have worked in regional Adelaide, a regional university called Charles Sturt University, in Sydney at the Australian Catholic University, and then moved to Adelaide in 2008, working for University of South Australia, and now Flinders University in the wonderful city of Adelaide, which you can see behind me. What I'm probably most known for is my research work in the contextual interference effect for motor learning, specifically how response planning and programming differ between repetitive and interleave practice formats, and also how the contextual interference during practice drives different modes of sequence learning. Probably my emerging work now that maybe some scholars are familiar with would be my involvement in mindfulness training, both as an intervention for neurological disorders such as stroke, but also looking at how acute mindfulness states shape how we learn sequence action, and also how we can use mindfulness states to support motor memory consolidation. So the new memories that we form from practice consolidating into our long term. And then more recently, I've been involved in looking at neurocognitive factors that might predict performance, predict individuals who are especially going to derive high gains from practice, and also using neurocognitive factors to help us individualize performance. As the Journal of Motor Learning and Development is a journal of the North American Society for Psychology of Sport and Physical Activity, or NASPA, been involved since all the way back in 1994. My first conference was at Clearwater, Florida, where I had a poster presentation back in the day that you printed off individual A4 sheets, put them in the little cardboard frames and hung those up. So we've obviously moved along since those days. I think my first verbal was with the overhead, transparencies. Yeah, that takes us back. In terms of NASPA, last year I was involved in two initiatives. One was the Motor Control and Learning online research seminar series that I started with Diane St. Marie, Dave Anderson, Keith Lose, Howie Zalaznik, and Harjeev Singh. So that's gone off really well as a new initiative that employs the teleconference technology to bring us together. And then also with Diane St. Marie, Jenny O, and Melissa Pangalian, we started the teaching network to help support the teaching of all of the areas under NASPA, so motor learning, motor development, and exercise and sports psychology.
So, Maarten, can you tell us, or can tell you the readership, why you are taking over the journal? What are you planning, and why is this an opportunity for you?
Well, I think the opportunity arose. So when you put out the calls for expressions of interest, I could see that you'd done two terms of editor-in-chief, 6 years. And so the one thing that really interested me in the position is the opportunity to contribute back to our society, NASPA, and also our research areas. When I attended the 2020 NASPA virtual conference, I was really inspired to see the extent to which people went to ensure that conference went ahead and pivoted, in the COVID situation, pivoted away from the face-to-face conference onto the online. And for me to see a number of key individuals dedicating that amount of time and effort to make that happen really made me realize, it's also my turn to contribute back to our society and our areas. So that's probably, one thing that was in my mind is looking at ways to give back. But the editor role also, relates to my passion for research, and that is getting together in teams, working collegially, looking at problems and how to formulate the right questions to address those problems, and coming up with creative and innovative solutions to those. And I viewed that the editor-in-chief role would provide that opportunity for me. But moreover, why the journal? I just feel it's a really special journal, just having read the works in there, and also having an opportunity to be involved in reviewing papers for the Research Excellence Award, and just seeing the high quality of work that's being put in this relatively, young journal. And so, just seeing the commitment that people are having to contribute to the journal volume really makes me feel that this is a success story. This journal is going to go places, and I want to be part of that narrative to take it to the next stage. So yeah, basically, in summary, I want to contribute back to our society, to our scholarly areas as editor-in-chief. I get a lot of contentment from working with teams and making things happen and succeeding together. And I really look forward to this leadership opportunity.
That's great. Can I ask you what you think are the current challenges in motor learning and motor development as you see them?
Yeah, maybe first I could lead into that question by, so what is motor learning and development? And this is a question that I always face back when I had to explain to my parents, what is it that I'm studying for my master's and PhD, and also my friends. If you Google motor learning and development, you're going to quickly get into some automotive training course. But to me, if you think about learning and development, when we learn something, we are changing our capacity to perform something, and in changing that capacity, we're actually changing ourselves. Moreover, development denotes also the idea of change, that we're going through changes as we go through stages of life. So to me, the learning and development reflect change. And I love the idea of change, as an academic teacher, teaching and learning, changing people's minds just through the idea and what they're learning and what that means in terms of their future career prospects. But more generally, change to me represents hope, that here's my situation now, but I can have change. And that gives us a sense of agency. But of course, change is also unsettling. The things are constantly changing, even though we may not want them to, can be unsettling. And obviously we can all relate to that with the COVID pandemic and the uncertainty. The other part is the motor that ties, the learning development together. And motor means movement, which is fundamental to our human experience. We use it for play, recreation, work, our function, our social interaction. And we know that movement's important for our health, physiological, our emotional well-being, our social well-being, and also our brain and mind function. So here we have this sort of nexus of learning and development addressing the theme of change and movement. And the reason why I say that is, if you think about it that way, these two areas are so fundamentally important to our society, to our human experience. But indeed, nevertheless, there are challenges in terms of producing scholarly work and empirical evidence that addresses this very important area. And some of these challenges were recently raised at a NASPA online research seminar series where we had Jane Clark, Howie Zelaznik, Rob Gray, and Caroline Winstein highlight some of these. And one of those is the issue of reproducibility. Is not isolated to motor learning and development, but research in general, and also transparency. So we're moving in a faster pace. Science. We have institutional and grant pressures that encourages that high output, and so that obviously challenges reproducibility and transparency. Another thing that came up is the idea of translation. So often motor learning development empirical evidence is produced in laboratories with certain groups. And so the question is, well, the evidence and theory that we derive from that, is that really able to translate into the real world? And I think this is an important challenge for us. And then another big challenge is funding. At least here in Australia, we're being encouraged to pursue more and more industry partnered research, which is very applied. And the sort of unwritten theme there is more emphasis on the application, less on the basic science. And I think that's a challenge because if you move too fast into the application and you don't have good grounding in the theory, this can sort of lead you down the wrong path in terms of that applied research. Then other issues that I see for our area is how do we look at our scope? Because at one hand, you can become too narrowly focused, you can miss the big picture, you can lose sight of the opportunities for transdisciplinary research and learning and development being one of those. If you get too focused in motor learning, you might miss out on the opportunity to consider the development questions that parallel in there. But at the same time, your research can be too wide, too broad, and that might result in overgeneralized theory that's not very good at predicting or explaining the actual phenomena that's occurring. But as a scientific disciplines, I would say a big challenge is how do we communicate the relevance of our work to society as a whole? We have very technical language. We have quite specific, theories, and you probably know this. As soon as you try to communicate it to undergraduate students, you realize that this quickly gets quite involved for the outsider. So how do we communicate relevance to society and even those who might, have their hands on the purse strings for grant funding or government policy and so on? And the challenge there is how can we have our theory and evidence be outward facing, right? So very, very clear and transparent and accessible to our society, our communities, so that we can make the best use of this high quality work that we're putting into the journal.
So just briefly, do you see that the Journal of Motor Learning and Development is going well positioned in the future years to address some of those challenges?
What I want is JML to be first and foremost in people's minds, to go, well, this is an up and coming journal. I'd say it's, we've had good experiences in the past there, and the work that I've read from there is at the quality of what I view my work to be. So destination place for us to express our ideas, to publish our work, to establish evidence develop theory and understanding, but also a destination. If you imagine the practitioner or the policymaker wanting to go out there and see what is the empirical evidence, to come to the journal, to find those facts, those ideas, that information. And finally, the one thing I'm quite passionate about on the theme of connection is connecting learning and development. As someone who sort of feels I'm always straddling different areas, the sort of cognitive neuroscience with the exercise science or the kinesiology versus the health sciences, I can really relate to the idea of, research shouldn't be siloed. It can be wonderfully cross and transdisciplinary, and that can really result in quite innovative approaches to maybe longstanding ideas in our research. So I certainly believe that the journal can help provide a way forward through the challenges. Obviously, it's an ongoing process, but I certainly think and believe that the journal can be a good active agent in the process of addressing these challenges.
I really enjoy listening to your vision. It's broad, but clear at the same time. So I'm really excited about you taking over the journal, and I will definitely follow how the journal will continue to grow under your leadership. So I just want to welcome you to the journal, and I wish you all the best as you will be taking the journal on July 1st, very soon.
Yes, very soon. But thank you, Daniela. The journal is currently in its 9th year, and 2/3 of that journal life has been under your leadership. It's amazing. You put in 6 years to lead the journal, to take it through the early, the sort of early middle stages of its life, and just the success that the journal has received under your leadership in terms of growth in submissions, citations per publication, which is obviously important as we move towards things like impact factors and more wider indexing. I'm also encouraged by the international profile of the research that's contained within the journal. So that's good for you. But moreover, in the 6 years, you've really cultivated the development of the journal's identity, which I think is really important. If we're going to belong to this journal, we have to have a sort of identity of what this journal is. And I think you've really done well to set that identity. You've actually, set the bar quite high for the next editor-in-chief. So I certainly have my work cut out for me. But I imagine, 6 years of your life committed to this journal, it's a notable transition for you to hand over the journal to somebody else. Thank you so much for trusting me with, handing the flame over to me, handing the light over to me. But I want to assure you that we are going to make the best of all of the groundwork that you've established, and really take the journal into its next phase as we move into its 10th year, its first decade, and beyond. I also want to thank your editorial team, so Mathieu Lenoir and Howie Zalaznik as your associate editors, and also your editorial board, who's just been amazing in their contribution and willingness to roll up their sleeves and put in the work to make the journal a success over the 6 years of your editor-in-chief tenure. So thank you so much, Daniela, and please, the door is open for you to engage, interact with the journal. We look forward to receiving your submissions in the future.
Thanks, Maarten.